Hello, neighbors. Happy Tuesday, August 12th, 2025. This is my live stream for the evening, and as usual, I still need to post it on Facebook. So let me grab that link and go ahead and hop over to my other page and get that posted. Hope everybody's doing well tonight. I'm sure you can hear the thunder in the background. I will stay tonight as long as I possibly can. Unfortunately, there is a tree hanging over my property that is likely to come down in a storm. So if it gets bad, I either have to leave or hit the basement, and I'm sorry, but I won't be taking it with me. So posting my live now. All right. Almost there, everybody. All right. Everybody can see it, almost ready. One of these days, I am finally going to sit down and play around with a service called Streamlab that will let me do some really fun stuff and do tickers and some fun things. And I should be able to plan my lives ahead of time. When I've tried to do tests in the past, it won't let me log on. So I'm kind of stuck with starting a minute or two early and just posting the link. But I'll work on it. I'll get there. Tech isn't my best subject. I actually studied politics and government. So anyway, tonight's lesson, I should say, is in what the mayor can and cannot do. And I promised to share the most common question I am asked while I am out campaigning. It's a good one. It's the top of mind for everybody I've spoken to. I think I've had one interaction where it wasn't the very first thing people asked me once I said I was running for mayor. So I'll save that for the end. But I have my notes beside me, so forgive me if I am looking over. In fact, I'm going to pop these on the other side. And I have to tell you, it drives me nuts that I don't have a mirror image here. That's what I'm used to on all my Zoom calls. So I'm kind of finding myself looking the wrong way. So anyway, I want to be very transparent about where this information is located. I'm not coming up with any of this information on my own. It is all available in our city charter. If you go to the city website, you can go to the right-hand side of the page and scroll down just a bit, and there's a little tab, I believe it's like red or pink, that says the city codes. That's where you can find everything I'm about to share tonight. I'm not making anything up. These aren't things I just know. Some of them were things I already knew, but I want to make it very clear that this information is available to the public and you don't have to be an insider to find it. It just takes a little work. Now, I understand most people do not feel like going to the city website and reading the city charter and going through all of our codes and rules and regulations, but that's okay. That's what you have me for. It takes all kinds of people for the world to go around. And I'll tell you the truth, I do not do algebra. Why? Because there are plenty of people out there who know how to do algebra, and I'm going to leave that subject to them. So in this case, you can kind of leave the homework to me, but you can definitely check up on me and make sure that I'm telling you the truth. So tonight's episode, what we're going to do is talk about what the mayor can and can't do. Again, you can hear that thunder behind me. I will stick around as long as it is safe to do so. Looking at the city charter in section 5.4b, it says that, you know what, I'm going to see if this is good. You can't even see my computer. It's right here now. It says the mayor shall preside at all meetings of the city commission and shall have an equal voice and vote with the other members of the commission upon all matters. This is important. In some cases, it's in the city charter that a mayor cannot offer a motion. What does that mean? You've probably heard like, I move this or I second that, things like that. That all comes down to Robert's rules. And in some city charters, the mayor cannot make a motion. It's meant that way so that a mayor can't really lead the city in one direction or the other, but it limits a mayor's ability to do so. I'll be honest, I've been to dozens of city commission meetings. I've never heard our current mayor just create his own motion. I have heard him ask, and this is what a lot of people will do, is say, I would entertain a motion on this subject that we're discussing. So that way they get somebody else to do it. He can second, or she, when mayor is a woman, can second a motion, but generally speaking, they don't. So this is something that, though it appears according to the charter, I could do, I probably wouldn't do all that often unless I thought that was the only way to get a motion to the floor. Robert's Rules is very complicated. I do have experience with it, but I am not a parliamentarian. Parliamentary procedure is difficult. I'm not sure who in the city is a parliamentarian, but I imagine there is one. So I will be doing a little bit more homework to refamiliarize myself with the ins and outs, because it's been a while since I've been part of a meeting that is governed by Robert's rules, and it will be up to me to implement them. So it's something that I will learn before I take office. So next up here is that the mayor shall be the chief executive of the city, shall be conservator of the peace with all the powers of a sheriff to maintain order in the city, shall represent the city for all ceremonial purposes, and shall do and perform all duties required of him by law. You probably heard that part about all the powers of a sheriff, right? Yeah, that got my ears up too. Like, there's no way that they've put something in place that makes, the mayor basically a cop. It's not true. Yes, the mayor has the power of a sheriff, but only in extreme emergencies. That would be a natural disaster, a foreign attack, something that took the grid down, a real true disaster, potentially some riots. If there were riots in other cities or in this city, the mayor could be called upon to, for example, present a curfew and give the police the authority to enforce that. That happened in River Rouge in the 70s. I took some notes here. I want to say it was 71, due to some riots that were in Detroit, and River Rouge enacted a curfew, and they also restricted the sale of different things like guns and bullets, and they sort of went to the extremes to ensure there would be peace in their town. So that is not something I would ever find myself doing. I would never interfere with any sale of anything. So what's up next here? Let me just read you some of the things that I've pulled from here. Under Michigan law, the mayor can become, for all practical purposes, a sheriff in extreme emergencies. They can declare a state of emergency within the city, thereby placing in effect the civil defense and disaster control plan required by this section. They can convene a city commission to perform legislative and administrative functions as the situation may demand. The city commission shall have power to terminate the state of emergency. And that's important too, that no one's power is ongoing and unchecked. So the city commission can gather and say, okay, we're done with this. Yes, the mayor started it, but now we're going to finish it. And that's really important, because under any circumstances, any two members of the commission can call a special meeting. And it has to be done so, I believe, it said something about 6 hours in advance, and probably more than that, but anyone can do it. It has to be announced. It can't be kept private. And whatever the reason for the meeting is the only thing that can be decided upon. So they can't call a special meeting for problem A and then discuss or decide anything on problem B. That would be a bait and switch. That would be a violation of the Open Meetings Act, which nobody wants to do. So just something to consider. Let's see. Request the state, this is another thing that the mayor can do, its agencies or political subdivisions to send aid if the situation is beyond control of the regular emergency city forces. The mayor has the power to command services and use the equipment needed to aid the regular and volunteer city forces in time of emergency. The mayor can also essentially deputize regular citizens to help in an emergency, to help bring order. So heaven forbid there is a natural disaster, the mayor can step in and say, you're an able-bodied person, I need your help, and you now have the authority to do so. Let's see. They can, the mayor in his or her absence or inability to serve, and this part here goes for any time the mayor is absent or unable to serve, the mayor pro tem shall have the power to do whatever it is the mayor can do. In this case that we're discussing, they shall have the power to order civil defense forces to aid the state or political subdivisions of the state, subject to city commission review as soon as is practicable. Again, we don't want unchecked powers for any length of time beyond the absolute most necessary. And we're talking about a serious, serious problem, not just because someone wants to. So let's see. Here are some things that nobody on the commission should do. No member of the commission shall vote on any question upon which he or a family member or his family has a direct or indirect financial interest other than as a citizen of the city. Otherwise, each member of the commission shall vote on each question before the commission for a determination, unless excused therefrom by the affirmative vote of all remaining members able to vote on the question. If a question should be raised under this section at any commission meeting, such question shall be determined before the main question shall be voted on, but the commission member affected shall not vote on such a determination. So, to give an example, let's say there's a vote on the sale of some property and a member of the commission owns part of that property, a percentage, or maybe the whole thing. They can't vote on whether or not the city can buy that property. They can't do it. If they don't mention it themselves, the rest of the commission needs to. Now, if there's any question, say the commissioner owns a very tiny fraction of a percent, or there's any question about just how serious this is, the rest of the commission votes and that person does not. So this has been a big issue in the city in terms of the Little League Park, the Armstrong Park, down on, I think, Buckhorn, across from one of my favorite places, Hidden Marsh. And I'll be very honest, I did not live in town when that issue was being settled, but I know that there was a lot of implied impropriety. There were a lot of people who thought that things were not proper. And in that case, I think that the city handled it wrong. I think everybody should have put their cards on the table, and anyone with an interest simply should not have had any say in what happened with that property. I don't have an interest in anything other than my very own house where I'm sitting right here, and I have a mortgage on it. I'm not even going to own it for about 25 and a half more years. So you can rest assured that I don't have an interest in anything, and there should be nothing that I am barred from voting on. None of my family members live in the city of Three Rivers. They don't have, even the ones who live nearby don't have any financial interests here. So I'm free and clear to vote on anything in the city. There's some discussion here in the city charter on the restriction of powers of the commission. And it says except as otherwise provided in this charter, the commission and its members shall deal with the administrative services of the city through the city manager only, to whom these powers may be delegated by the commission, and shall give no orders directly or indirectly to any administrative officer or employee of the city. Why is this important? This is something that I'm closing my computer and getting really into this here. This is something that it has its place. And it was something that I had the opportunity to really thoroughly discuss and learn about when I was in my master's program, learning how to be a good public administrator. The reason that the commission or the mayor is not in direct contact with anybody who is employed by the city is so that nothing improper happens, and that for another just very basic reason, so nobody can get conflicting orders, so to speak. I could never, as mayor, go to the city clerk and say, hey, can you do X, Y, and Z? Absolutely not. She is directed by the city manager, plain and simple. I could not go to a police officer and ask them to perform any particular duty. That's impossible. I couldn't even go to the police chief and ask him to perform a particular duty or to order an officer to perform a particular duty. I could not go to a billing clerk and ask them to do anything. No commission member can. Everything has to go through the city manager. It's important for a lot of reasons. However, the fact that we have what's called a weak mayor system, where we have a city manager, puts that block between the people and our elected politicians and our city staff. So the city staff really shouldn't even be coming to our elected officials when they have a problem. There's a chain of command, they should follow it. However, that puts some really serious restrictions on our city staff, many of whom put their lives on the line to keep the rest of us safe. And at times, there's really no right answer. I think some of us know where I'm going with this. A few years ago, our fire chief, Chad Witt, came and spoke before the city commission. He was very concerned about not having the proper equipment that was needed and how morale was incredibly low. He actually stated in his statements that he paid an attorney himself to see if he could even do that. And apparently it was found to be okay. I'm really glad that he did so, because that brought to light the fact that our firefighters were in really bad shape at the time and really needed the support of the city, and they weren't getting it. Now, for those of you who know the incident that I'm speaking about, you know what the mayor said to him. I was disgusted when I saw the video, and I imagine that you would be too. I highly suggest that if you're unfamiliar with what I'm discussing, that you Google the words Three Rivers Firefighter and Mayor and just watch the video for yourself. That's one of the things that really prompted me to seriously consider running for mayor. I didn't run in the next election. I didn't have my ducks in a row. And I just really needed to make certain that if and when I ever did run for mayor, that I was in it to win it, and that I knew that I had what I needed in my own life put together so that I could give the city my all. So that said, please look up that video. There are many of them. It's a very easy Google. Again, Three Rivers Mayor and the word firefighter. You can watch the video for yourself. Starting to get some rain. I don't know if you guys can see and hear it, but I'm going to stick around unless it gets windy. So some of the things that the commission cannot do. Sorry, my screen is shaky here. I'm on just a little table. Let's see. Okay. Of course, the commission can pass ordinances. That's how ordinances happen. But no ordinance can be passed that was introduced at the same meeting. Or, I'm sorry, I said that in a funny way. You cannot introduce an ordinance and pass it in one meeting. It gives time for people to speak at public comment. It gives time for the commission to truly consider what's at hand, and then, of course, to consider whatever the public has to say. That's very important. Let's see. Another thing. So there's something called a quorum, and a quorum is, generally speaking, a majority of a body. So in our case, I believe we have 7 seats on the commission, including the mayor. You need at least 4 people before you can hold a meeting. If for some reason there are not 4 people, illness, absence, whatever, then that group can adjourn the meeting and it doesn't happen. It can be rescheduled, whatever. But you cannot vote on anything without 4 members, especially in ordinance. Now, there are penalties for if a person were to break this charter. And I want to back up a little bit because I thought that I had put this in bold. Let me see if I did. Yes, I did. This is section 5.4, meetings of the commission. Let's see. And it discusses how the commission may compel the attendance of its own members or other officers, department heads, or employees of the city at meetings, and may enforce fines for non-attendance in such an amount and manner as it may be by ordinance, as the ordinance prescribes. This is where it gets good. Any member of the commission or other officer who, when requested to do so, refuses to attend such meetings for reasons other than confining illness, or to conduct himself in an orderly manner thereat, shall be deemed guilty of a violation of this charter. Again, I urge you to watch the video I described a moment ago. The police chief or other such person at commission shall serve as the sergeant at arms of the commission in the enforcement of the provisions of this section and to maintain order at commission meetings. A sergeant at arms is basically like, let's see, how would I describe it? Sort of like the bailiff, if you've ever watched a court show where they just sort of stand there and maybe walk things back and forth if necessary and just sort of keep the peace. So it is a violation of our city charter not to conduct oneself in an orderly manner. I promise you, I will always conduct myself in an orderly manner. I take criticism very well. I don't lose my temper. Maybe when I get home, I might say some bad words. I will do my very best to always refrain from doing so while sitting on the dais and representing this city. Let's see, what else do we have here? Okay, this is important too. So we have about 1 million ordinances in our city code. And it seems like, in my experience and in my opinion, that a lot of times we don't enforce codes unless somebody complains about something. Now, again, this is my opinion. I have no facts to back it up. This is how I feel. So, section 6.6 of the city charter states this. So at least somebody knows they're clear after 2 years. No prosecution for the violation of an ordinance shall be commenced after the expiration of 2 years after the commission of the offense or after the commission of the offense has been brought to the attention of the commission. So, if we want to keep some ordinances on the books, that's fine for now. I will request a full line by line reading and update of all of our ordinances so that the ones we're choosing not to enforce, we can't turn around at some point later and use against someone. Now, granted, we have this 2-year statute here, but that's not enough. If we're not enforcing a rule, sorry for the shaking again, moving my computer. If we're not enforcing a rule, there is no reason to keep it on the books. So, starting to get a little rainy. I'm hoping it's not going to get windy. And I promised I would answer the question that I am asked most when I am out campaigning. That question is, I thought I should give a little background too. I'll save the background for another video. But the number one question that I am asked, and it's almost always the very first question, is, can you fire Joe Bippus? The answer is no. I cannot unilaterally, as mayor, fire Joe Bippus. The next question that follows that up is, well, who elected him anyway? No one. No one elected Joe Bippus. He serves at the pleasure of the city commission. That's in the charter too. So what would it take to remove a city manager? Any city manager. It would take a vote by the commission. Now, I've looked around and I can't find any of our city employee contracts. I'm not certain if they're available, but salaries are available. And that's actually what I'm going to discuss next week. So we'll see if I can dig up employment contracts, if they are public record, or if I just have to FOIA them, which it shouldn't be that way. Those should be, if it's legal to share them, they should be on the city website. And that's something that I would fight to do as mayor, or I'll just FOIA them and present them publicly because I don't think there's any rules against that. I'll double check before I do though. Something about me is I always do my homework. I was not a great student when I was young. I've said before, I didn't start college until I was 35. And I wanted an education so desperately at that time that I learned how to do research. I learned how to write papers. I learned how to cover my butt. So that's what I'm going to keep trying to do. So again, I want to say thank you, neighbors, for being here tonight and for caring about our city. I said that last week. It's really nice to know that somebody ever will watch this. I don't get a lot of attendance at the lives, but that's okay. A friend suggested, because I was having some tech difficulties, she said, why don't you just, record it ahead of time? I think it's a little bit less authentic. Could there come a time when I need to record something ahead of time? Yes. And as with last week, when my live stream crashed, when I tried to share my screen, I will have to re-record that one. And I will probably do it just on an evening when I have a few minutes. Sorry, I haven't done it yet. I think it's a really important thing to share, and I want everybody to understand how our federal, state, and local governments interact. But I also wanted everybody to know what the mayor can and can't do. I posted on one of the local pages that I was going to do this live tonight, and someone demanded that I define accountability in a barrage of questions. I want to address a couple of those. One of them is, why would we bring people to this city if our school reading rates are only 67%? I looked up our school reading rates, and they're actually lower than 67%, which is really sad. But the mayor has nothing to do with the school board. That is a completely different thing. And unfortunately, with my live stream getting cut off last week, I wasn't able to just point this person towards it and say, watch that live stream, you'll find out. They also asked about things that go on at our theater downtown. The mayor has no say over what happens in a privately owned theater, and they shouldn't. That's just not in the purview of a mayor. The mayor has no say in federal events. The mayor has no say in state events. The mayor cannot fix all the damn roads. They can only try to influence what's happening with our city roads. So the lesson, I guess, tonight is what a mayor can and can't do, a lot of things they really can't do, and what it would take to remove a city manager. So next week we'll talk salaries, and sorry, it's getting really loud with the rain. Next week we'll talk salaries, and I will walk you through the last couple of years of raises. Again, this is all public information. I was literally able to just Google Three Rivers, Michigan, city salaries, and everything came right up. I'll also discuss how the city charter and the website that I found that shows the salaries shows two different salaries for our commission. Mayor gets a smidge more than the commissioners do, but it's a dramatic difference when you look at what the charter says versus what these salaries say. And I checked with two public officials that I'm friends with, and they said that their salaries were accurate. These were from different municipalities. So we'll see what happens. But thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight. I really appreciate it. And I hope you learned something. And I hope to see you at the polls on or before November 4th. Have a great one.